What's up, everyone? Welcome into the All 22 NFL show, the official channel of the All 22 fantasy football platform. The only fantasy football game with full 53-man rosters, including offensive linemen, where you get to choose personnel packages and have access to PFF grading and advanced stats to make decisions each week. The system is live. Games are going on. If you didn't join, reach out to us by email. You could get the email. It's info@all-22.com. Let us know if you want to join, right? We can still get you in a league if you are interested. This season's been great. Ray, I'm doing pretty well. I don't know about you. I mean, I'm a Packer fan, so I'm in heaven right now. But how are you doing?
It's great. I did the whole East Coast dad thing last night with the double header for Monday Night Football. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna stay up. I'm gonna watch this whole thing. And by halftime of the Raiders game, I just woke up and I was like, well, this is I woke up and I was like, oh, maybe the Raiders have a chance here with, I don't know, 7 minutes left. They can get a drive together and see what happens. And then it just nope, wasn't happening. I said, all right, back to bed we go. So don't look for super in-depth coverage of the Raiders Chargers from last night. I can give you a great quarter and a half summary of what we saw, which wasn't terribly unexpected when you consider just sort of the overall talent level of either roster. And Khalil Mack's arm was not supposed to move that way. So I wish they could have showed that replay, I don't know, like 4 fewer times than they actually did. But doing great, Chris, doing great.
I did not watch that game last night. I went to bed because I'm not a psychopath. But anyway, Sam Monson's been comparing Genty to Trent Richardson, and I haven't watched like a live performance yet. You did?
No.
All right. Thank God.
No.
Good.
I think it was joking. I think it went over your head.
It was not a joke. It was definitely
not.
No,
there was a couple, yes, but like, no, I'm not there.
Good.
I'm not there.
All right. Ray, after 2 weeks, can you name the top 4 graded quarterbacks in the NFL?
Dak Prescott, Matthew Stafford, maybe Jalen Hurts, because he's not really risking any biscuits there. It's not Daniel Jones, but he's up there. Or maybe it is Daniel Jones. Yeah, I'm going to go with Daniel Jones.
You're not. You're 2 for 4, and I think the other guys are up there. But right now it's Matthew Stafford at 1 with a 91.5 offensive grade. It's Dak Prescott at 2 with an 89.9. It's your boy, Sam Darnold at 3 with an 86.8. And Jordan Love at 4 with an 86.7. I think Josh Allen was 5, but like everybody knows that. So I did a top 4. Pretty cool. Definitely cool because it's different, right? It's something unique. That's kind of been the vibe this season, is like the top guys aren't necessarily having the best seasons, or maybe their teams just aren't as good as they used to be, right? So it's a little bit more difficult. And then we're seeing guys like Prescott and Stafford who are great, right? Like are great quarterbacks, just having at least a start of the season that's looking as good as can be. But let's start off. Tell me, which of those is real and which of those is fake? Let's start with Stafford, who so far has only played Tennessee and Houston. Is this real or fake? Can we expect him to actually finish in the top 5?
No, he's not going to finish in the top 5, but he's probably going to finish in the top 10 or 12 because of the system, because he is still a very good quarterback. So assuming health, there was the whole training camp, he's kind of dinged up and injured. Is he going to play? Assuming health, top 10-ish, top 10, 11, he's going to finish in that range. So I'm selling top 4, but it's still going to be a very good year for Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, we both get the caveat that he stays healthy. If he doesn't stay healthy, that's not on us. Yeah. But I'm in agreement with you. I think it's probably a top 10. Devontae Adams and him look great together, right? And Puka's Puka and doing fantastic. It looks like things are clicking for him, right? And again, it's against 2 probably bottom 15 defenses in the NFL. I hate to say that against Houston with the defensive backs that they have, but in reality, it probably is a bottom 15 defense this year. We'll see. Dak Prescott, right? 89.9 grade. He's played Philly and the Giants. Will he finish as a top 5 quarterback in the NFL?
Yes. Buy it. His last fully healthy season, he was the runner-up for the MVP in the NFL behind Lamar Jackson. And the kicker is things around him are going to get better. Okay. So the Cowboys are dead last in pass blocking grade in the NFL with a collective 38.7. They are the worst pass blocking team in the NFL, thus far. Now, they played the Eagles, and whatever you want to say about the Giants, at least their defensive front, their front 4 or 7, if you will, you include Abdul Carter in that edge rotation as well, is really, really good. So the schedule when it comes to just the pressure, the amount of pressure he's going to face is going to get easier. He's faced 21 pressures in his first 2 games this season. But like you said, it's still the second highest graded quarterback right now. He's 4th in big time throw percentage, 4th in adjusted completion percentage. And of the 3 above him in adjusted completion percentage in the league right now, he is tied with the highest ADOT, I believe, with Matthew Stafford, if I recall correctly. So again, he's not going to face this much pressure for the next 15 weeks of the season in the pocket. So that's going to ease up a little bit. And if he just continues this pace again, his full season pace, his last healthy season, he was the MVP runner-up. So absolutely, people need to start giving him his due.
Yeah, I'm buying it too. Maybe not for the exact same reasons you are, but I agree. I think he's a very good quarterback, very talented quarterback, and I like that he doesn't shy away from pressure situations, right? Like he plays Philadelphia, goes out there and puts up a really good show, right? I think one thing that I take away, and I have a little bit of caution, is both the Philly defense and the Giants defense are young defenses, right? Like these are defenses that, have drafted a lot of guys in the last few years. They've lost some guys in free agency. They're just young defenses, right? This week, I believe you guys play the Bears, so that should be another good matchup for him. But then he has back-to-back weeks against the Packers and Jets, right? And I think both of those, wouldn't be surprised if he ends up getting pressured just as much as he had, if not more than he has the last few weeks, right? So those are going to be really tough. And I think we'll know a lot more about his season and the way it's going to go after those games than he has the Panthers before going to the Commanders and Broncos. So it's kind of like half the games seem like they're good matchups for him and probably pretty easy. And then they're just about as difficult as can be. So we'll know a lot more in the next few weeks for Dak. Sam Darnold, okay? San Francisco and Pittsburgh so far. I think I'm leaning TBD still on Darnold, okay? Because I was very skeptical of him coming into the season. Y'all heard it, right? I'm not going to shy away from it. I was saying that Darnold was going to go back to average, and he hasn't, right? 86.8 grade is phenomenal, and he looks like he's very comfortable in that offense and running that offense. Him and Jackson Smith and Jigba have been hooking up really well. He finally brought out Cooper Kupp this week, and he's doing so with an offensive line that still has some holes in it and isn't really fully healed yet. But Charles Cross, 79.8 grade himself. Like there are some good pieces there, right, that he's working with, and it's clicking. San Francisco defense, there's still the Bosa effect, but that defense has lost a lot of pieces as well. Pittsburgh should be great still, right? We were expecting Pittsburgh to be a top defense. So for him to do that against those two defenses is impressive. I'm still TBD because I think Darnold showed us last year that he can have 10 really great weeks and then 6 really bad weeks. So it's kind of a little Jekyll and Hyde thing going on with Sam Darnold. But what are you thinking?
I'm going to sell top 5, maybe sell top 8. I'm going to hold on top 10 and probably buy top 12. The schedule is really not that difficult. You got the Saints, the Cardinals, Buccaneers, maybe, although was that just a product of the Houston offensive line with the amount of pressure that they've gotten so far? And then you follow that up with the Jaguars. I mean, the Jaguars are improving on defense. That could be a pretty tough matchup. Texans as well. That pass rush is fierce. But then you kind of go back to, Commanders, Cardinals, Rams, Titans. There's not a ton of super tough matchups here. Maybe 3 or 4 or 5 tops for the remainder of the season where you're really worried about the type of pressure and coverage looks he's going to face. So I think over time, the top names are going to ascend themselves, into the conversation throughout the season. But Darnold, I think, is going to be fine. I think he's primed for another top 12 finish here. And yeah, I'm going to say I told you so.
Okay. Jordan Love is the last one we want to talk about here in the quarterback room. And, again, Detroit and Washington, I think you look at what they did last year and you immediately go, oh, Jordan Love must be real. but I'm a little bit more hesitant, right? Detroit lost its defensive coordinator, who is now the head coach of the Jets, in Aaron Glenn. Washington has a great defense, but are they really as great as they did last year, right? And I think it's one of those things where when it's new, you can kind of get away with some stuff, but when teams start to figure you out a little bit, it gets a little harder. And I think that's what this new Washington teams kind of have happening to them, right? Is teams are kind of figuring out how to play them, and it's starting to show, right? I think that's at least my takeaway. And I look at the schedule for the Packers, right? The Browns, they've been putting up some really tough defensive performances the last couple weeks, right? And it's not just an easy win game, I think, for anyone. Will the Packers win the game? I hope so, right? But is Jordan Love going to look as good against that defense with Myles Garrett and some of those DBs? We'll find out a lot, right? And then the Cowboys the week after, the Cowboys are going to want like a little bit of a revenge game. Can they actually do it? We'll see. But that's going to be tough. Bengals, Cardinals, those maybe, he looks pretty good in, but then Steelers coming after that. So again, like a few really difficult matchups for Jordan Love in the next, I'd say, 5 weeks that we're going to learn a lot, especially in the next 2 against the Browns and the Cowboys. So he's another one I'm going to hit TBD on. I think there is a chance, I think a higher chance that Love finishes than Darnold. But again, I'm probably leaning towards more of that like top 10 this year finish as opposed to top 5.
Yeah, let LaFleur cook there. Probably top 10 because that's about the normal range for him. And again, just avoid some of these pesky injuries like now Jaden Reed, and we've seen what's happened with the Packers offensive line over the last couple of years and all the shuffling due to injury there. So if they could just be stable health-wise, I think that will go a really long way, because I do think if everything clicks, he could, be a top 5 finisher. He could be in that 5th to 7th range, but they just got to stay healthy and just kind of, stick with it. I do think we're seeing some of that high ceiling that they can achieve, but they need some stability health wise. And it's already showing some cracks. I'm not necessarily just screaming doom and gloom here, but in the context of a top 5 finish, I think that's going to be a bit tough now.
All right, let's go to some of the skill positions, and Croskey-Merritt on Washington. Let's talk about him for a second. 85.8 grade so far on the season. He was listed as 4th on the depth chart, but looks like he's getting real burn at this point. Are we thinking he's real?
I mean, define real. He's a real running back. You could start him. I mean, he's there. He's going to get volume. Yes. I don't think he's going to be a superstar. I don't think he's going to finish top 5 in the NFL among running backs, grade wise or otherwise. I don't think so. But at the same time, if I were to make the case for him, he didn't go against cream puff defenses to start the year, at least when it comes to the run game in general, right? Again, the Giants front is stout. The Packers just defense overall pretty darn good. I mean, I don't see top 5. I think they come back to earth a little bit. You have the injury with Jaden Daniels. It's probably going to affect things and not open up the run game quite as much as it otherwise would for at least a few weeks here. And I think that's going to slow things down a little bit. But yeah, by all means, he's a young running back getting volume with a defined role. Yeah, you could start him each week. Just don't expect a superstar each week like we've seen 2 weeks in.
So far on the season, he's 2nd in offensive grade with a 78.1, and then his rushing grade is number 1 in the league with an 85.8. I think the reason I'm pumping the brakes a little bit on a top 10 finish, his receiving grade has been pretty poor, so a 51.2 receiving grade. The thing is they haven't really targeted him much, right? 2 targets, period, on the year. Austin Eckler's hurt, right, and out. Does that change? Do they need to rely on him more in the passing game? And is he going to be able to perform and step it up? I don't know. I'm probably agreeing with you that you can probably start him and it's okay, but I wouldn't bank on him giving you a top 12 performance, right? If you're in a 16-team league, maybe you start him. If not, you should be able to start somebody a little bit better. Cam Skattebo is the other guy I wanted to talk about real quick. So 77.6 grade so far on the season. Yes, it's on, probably less snaps than Croskey-Merritt. I'm also pumping the brakes here, right? He was the workhorse back this week for the Giants, 42 yards and a touchdown. But when I look at that yards after contact number, 2.77, that was his bread and butter in college, right? Like that's something that we expected of him. But so far in the NFL, he's 38th in yards after contact amongst running backs. So definitely a number that you expect to improve a little bit, but is it that there was something too that like maybe he does lack a little burst, where in the NFL, those guys are getting their hands on him and obviously everybody's bigger, stronger, faster. They're bringing him down, right? Where in college, he could get away with that. Something interesting though, just for comparison's sake, Ashton Genty is right above him at 38 with a 2.8 yards after contact number. So, if you're saying about Skattebo, it's, are you also saying it against Genty? I think the number of carries is probably significantly more for Genty, but should we be concerned about either of them, both of them, neither of them? What are you thinking?
I'm surprised you're the one saying that about your boy Cam Skattebo, but
I'm a realist, Ray. I'm a realist.
Okay.
I'm not like you, man. I'm not just gonna stand on my priors if I'm proven wrong, man. I'm looking at the numbers.
Well, I'm gonna stand on my priors when I'm proven right. So the thing with Skattebo was always, how does this translate? Because yes, he's powerful. Yes, he is relentless. But as an opposing defender, okay, that it's not going to be a fun day at the office, but it's pretty clear how you stop Cam Skattebo, and it's simply just be tough and bow up at the point of contact, and it's going to hurt. It's going to be a little painful, but you do it, and that's how you're going to win, because he's not going to make you miss. He's not going to break away for 60 yards by carving up the defense the way, some other backs do and can. So, yeah, it's one of those where when you're dealing with professionals at this level, you have to have that sort of extra juice or that extra sort of ability to win by, winning those one-on-ones and making people miss. And he just doesn't have that. So I am concerned about Skattebo, but I think his role is helpful more so in wearing down a defense over time and so forth, and kind of then, allowing for some bigger plays to be made later on when you soften them up. But he's not necessarily the guy that's going to make those big plays against the defense late in games. It's going to be, the spellback, whether it's a Tyrone Tracy or what have you, or just in general, the softening up of the defense that everybody else benefits from. So in all 22 terms and just in general terms, when it comes to production, yeah, I think the ceiling is pretty limited with Skattebo there. So I am concerned. I'm certainly not concerned yet about Genty. I think this is more of a rookie just kind of figuring things out. I thought these past couple weeks, or rather this past game and a quarter and a half, that the Raiders offense has been a little bit predictable when it comes to run and pass. You've kind of seen defenses tee off on the run in certain situations. I don't think he's been set up to succeed terribly well, he being Genty. So I think they'll figure things out. Chip Kelly, he's been around the block. They'll be fine overall. So I'm not quite as concerned with Genty just yet. But with Skattebo, I do think the ceiling is limited, and that's concerning.
All right, let's go to the receiver position, where Zay Flowers right now with an 84.3 grade is towards the top, right? And right now it's looking like he's going to finish in the top 5. Obviously, the season's early, but looking like one of the top targets for Lamar. That 84.3 is currently 3rd in the NFL, right? 218 receiving yards as well with a touchdown. That's looking pretty impressive, right? And Flowers was a guy that I was pretty high on as a recruit and thought that he added a nice element, right? Because the Ravens have experimented a few times with those first round receivers, right? They went with Hollywood Brown, followed it up with, what was my boy's name? Rashad Bateman. And I didn't think either of those guys really fit the bill for that offense the way Zay Flowers does. So I think it could be like a very nice fit. And I'm thinking this one's real.
For just under 42% of his snaps from the slot, which is a really nice position to be in an offense with Lamar Jackson and the space that opens up over the middle. Lamar likes those seams. Flowers can be a 3-level threat. So yeah, he's looking pretty well. And then if you're just trying to just do some math here and deductiveness with the top 5, The prospects for someone like Jamar Chase probably aren't looking so hot to finish top 5 like he may typically otherwise do. Jaden Reed grading very highly. There's now an injury there to be dealt with. DeAndre Hopkins, if the fellow Raven there, maybe I don't think that's a top 5 type of finish, but hey, maybe he's showing us he's got something left. So I think just in general here, I think things look pretty good for Zay Flowers. He's in position to certainly keep it up. I'll say that much. Obviously, receiver is a deep position in the league, and there's a lot of stud playmakers there. But whether it's top 5 or not, I think grade-wise, the type of performances and production he's putting up so far, he could absolutely keep up for the majority of the season and finish very highly.
So 2 guys I just wanted to give a quick shout out. I think seeing either of them finish in the top 10 wouldn't be surprised. So I guess the question to you is, do you actually see either of them finishing in the top 5? I'm going to say no from my perspective, but Ladd McConkey and Tetairoa McMillan, Tet with a 75.8 offensive grade, Ladd with a 73.7, both doing pretty well. And I think right now they're both in the top 12. Could either of them slip into the top 5? I'm calling top 10 for both.
If the game-breaking snaps keep going to freaking Quentin Johnston, then no for Ladd McConkey. But he's my boy, so I'm going to say yes. I think he's just so boringly great. Ladd McConkey's like Floyd Mayweather. It's just not flashy, but he just got open. He just beat the leverage. Oh, look, there's 8 yards. Oh, look, there's a first down, 12 yards. Yeah, he's got that consistency, snap over snap to do it. I'm going to say top 10 for Ladd.
All right, so the next guy that I have on the list is 13th, 74.7 grade, Troy Franklin. So this is a guy I did not expect to show up and show out the way he has. But 6'3", 187 pounds, pretty fast. In 2 games, right? 67.3 against Tennessee, 76.7 against Indianapolis, puts him at 74.7 on the year. Don't ask me how the math works. Total yards, 133 and a touchdown. He seems like Bo Nix's boy. Could there really be a big season in store for Troy Franklin?
No. Define big.
Elaborate.
Define big. Yeah, I mean, I think he could finish with like 600 yards. Be grading probably a top 35 grader, but no, I don't see the consistent,
not a top 10.
No, I don't see the consistent game breaking weeks from him to make it happen. No.
Okay. Let's go to the tight end position where Tyler Warren now has an 82.4 offensive grade, 79.4 receiving grade, 79.1 pass blocking grade, 155 receiving yards, averaging 14.1 yards per reception. Yes, right? Just yes.
Yeah, it's just yes. He could do it all.
He can do it all. And I think that's really what separates him, right? Brock Bowers this year is at 68.9. Kyle Pitts at 72.4 offensive grade. Both of those guys are great in their own right. But I think what separates a guy like Tyler Warren, which is why I had him as my prospect 1 at the tight end position in the All-22 era, is that this dude can block. This dude is a legitimate blocking tight end that can do it all. But he's showing that he's as effective of a receiver as just about anybody in the NFL at the tight end position. So I think we're both in agreement there. We don't have to talk too much about it. And then
I'll say one more thing, though. He can also run the ball. He can also, I know he got stopped on that short yardage this past weekend, but he can run the ball. So that's another thing. He's going to make big plays just literally on the ground. So yeah, he can literally do it all.
All right. And then Tucker Kraft, right? Everybody loves Tucker Kraft. 80.0 grade on the season, 90.1 receiving grade is highest among tight ends, 2 touchdowns, 140 yards. I think it's real. Like, I think it's real for a lot of the same reasons I think Tyler Warren is real. Like, this is a guy that isn't just a receiving weapon at the tight end position. We're talking about 6'5", 260 pounds with 4.6 speed. Like, this is a guy that really can do it all. And again, he's not doing it against nobody. He's doing it against Detroit, who has a great linebacker combo, 2 of the best safeties in the NFL, and then Washington, who, again, another really good and strong defense with great linebackers. I think Tucker Kraft is real.
I do, and I think the other thing is I think LaFleur is going to keep getting him good opportunities for yak and those game-breaking plays. I think the chemistry is good in that offense. It's not like tight end is a super deep position where a ton of names are going to be in contention for a top 5 finish either. I'm all in. I'm buying it.
All right, let's talk about the offensive line. There are a few guys I wanted to shout out really quick, and you could tell me if it's real or fake. But from an offensive grading perspective, number 3 and 4 on the list of all offensive linemen are Brian O'Neill and Colton Miller. These are guys that are now both 30 years old, and each of them has 6 years in a row with above 70 grading and at least 3 years of 80+ grading. These are just like tried and true guys from my perspective. I think it's very, very likely they finish at top 10 for offensive tackle. And could this be the year that they finish in the top 5?
Oh, man. For Brian O'Neill, it's possible. I think for Brian O'Neill, it's possible. He's been steady while that offensive line is just like overnight got hurt again and was kind of in some disarray. So if he holds that up and things get better and settle down a bit, and maybe JJ McCarthy isn't playing on those newborn sleepless nights, and we'll have to talk about his health and everything too. But the fact that he's kind of the steadying hand in a storm right now is encouraging to me for Brian O'Neill. Colton Miller, I need to see more from the Raiders. I think, again, I just need to see more. They just don't seem terribly in sync or a step ahead right now, and that's a little bit worrisome.
All right. Jake Brendel, center for San Francisco, is currently the second highest graded center with a 79.1. They played Seattle, right? One of the toughest interior defensive lines in football. Is Jake Brendel a name to watch this year?
Yes, because of the system he's in, and there's like 3 good centers. So even if he's not a good one and he's just like the 4th, that's still top 5, isn't it? So like, yeah, I'm buying Jake Brendel here.
All right, we're buying Jake Brendel. Joe Alt and Charles Cross. Alt with a 77.4 and Cross with a 79.8. I think Cross may have finished top 5 last year. Joe Alt didn't. He was outside of that. Could both of those guys slip into the top 5 this year?
No, I'm looking at the name. I'm looking at the names below. I think Sewell's going to jump back up now as he gets further and further away from the Micah Parsons weeks. You got Mailata. I already said O'Neill. Just by simple math, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. And I feel like I've been too positive. I feel like I've been too positive. I got a couple no's in here.
I'm going to say yes. I've really liked what I've seen from the Chargers with what they've been able to do, and I like what they have Alt doing on the left side, right? You know, he was switching just in the preseason, like didn't have much time to kind of prep, and he's doing it, right? So I think as he gets more and more comfortable again playing on the left side, I think he gets even better. I think he's one of those players. Like I think he's maybe not Penny Sewell level, but I think he's right below that, which to me, like there's one Penny Sewell and then a bunch of other guys. I think Alt is one of those other guys that could be a top 5 tackle in the NFL. Charles Cross, I think that's the one where I'm like, I don't know, but he actually has done it before, which gives me hope. Again, I expect Sam Darnold in that offense to regress a little bit as people start to figure them out. So I'm a little bit less positive on Charles Cross finishing top 5, but I definitely think both of them are top 10. And I think Alt is definitely top 5. Armand Membu, 63.4 grade this past week against Buffalo after his amazing week 1 finish. Where is he, right? Like, should we be seeing more 90+ graded weeks like we did in week 1? Is it going to be more in the 60s? Is it going to be somewhere in between? Is he a must start every single week? What's real?
No, he should be your tackle 3. He should be your tackle 3. And if he keeps grading in the 60s, that's very good. He's a rookie offensive tackle. That's really hard in the NFL. So yeah, no, that's a good thing. Be encouraged, but no, he shouldn't be an automatic starter, and he should not expect to see that blue square next to his name every single week. That's just way too high of an expectation. But be encouraged by solid performances from a pretty, relatively speaking, raw player coming into the league. That's all super positive.
All right, we're going to jump to the defense side of the ball, and we're going to make this a little bit more rapid fire. Brian Branch is number 3 out of all defenders with a 91.8 grade. Last year with an 83.7 season grade. Is it possible that we're seeing one of the best players on defense start to become an absolute superstar? Is it real?
Absolute. I think he's a star. I don't think he's an absolute superstar. That's very high to me. I'm also not
Okay.
sure any safety besides Kyle Hamilton is an absolute superstar, but he's a star and he's really good. And you get Aiden Hutchinson further and further away from that injury, get him healthy. Yeah. Yeah. He's an absolute stud. But
Okay.
yeah.
Devin Bush is currently 4 among all defenders with a 91.3 season grade. Devin Bush is now on Cleveland, for those that even aren't aware, right? He was on Cleveland last year as well. After bouncing around the league a bit, Pittsburgh, Seattle, then to Cleveland. He had a pretty good year last year with a 79.2 after, again, some really rough performances in Seattle and Pittsburgh. Did Devin Bush find his feeding, right? Linebackers take time just like tight ends do. Did he find his footing, and is he actually a good football player? Is there a top 5 finish in line for Devin Bush?
I don't know about top 5 because there's like a lot of good linebackers currently because, again, the NFL just let the best player out of position fall to the Eagles in the draft with Jihad Campbell. But Devin Bush, yeah, he was bad for 5 straight years in the NFL, never even reached a 60 overall grade, only playing 250 snaps in 2023. Then it's like, oh, he's pretty solid in 2024 once he goes to the Browns. And now, like you mentioned, he's grading a top 2 linebacker right now with 91.3. And I'm always uncertain about guys on just straight up bad teams because things can fall apart like they did with the Dolphins. So even if you're a good player, you just kind of have a poor year because everything just kind of just goes kaput. But run defense 79.1. The coverage grade of 90.4 worries me a bit because that can bring with it some very high variance week to week or season to season. But he's always been a good blitzer, has a 78.9 pass rushing grade. He's tied for 7th among all linebackers in the NFL with 8 stops. And in front of him, he's got a growing young talent in Mason Graham on the interior. He's got Myles Garrett. He's got Isaiah McGuire, probably the least talked about very good player in the entire league right now for the Cleveland Browns as well. So, we know they have talent in the secondary. So, yeah, by and large, he's got good surroundings and he's kind of showing out now for the 2nd year in a row. I'm buying Devin Bush. I don't know if I'm buying top 5, but he might be a starter every week, which is really rough to find at linebacker.
Wow, yeah, those are encouraging words. All right, let's go. Number 6 and 7 on the list are 2 old heads, Xavier Woods and Demario Davis, 90.4 and a 90.3 grade on the season for each of those guys. For older guys, health is always going to be a concern. But if you take health out of the equation, right, bearing they both stay healthy, are there really top 5 positional finishes for each of those guys?
No, because I think other really quality names are also having good years, even if they're not necessarily top 5 as of right now. There's like an ascendance with Jaquan Brisker, for example. I'm just not, there's too many talented names that are kind of nipping at their heels to finish top 5. But yeah, start them every week.
I'm thinking Xavier Woods might be real. Demario Davis, I think that team is going to be really rough. Tennessee might be rough too, but there are not a lot of great safeties in the NFL right now. So I would not be surprised if he ended up with a pretty high finish. Divine Diablo, linebacker for Atlanta, New Orleans. Holy cow.
Yeah.
For Atlanta, I had it right the first time. 87.1 grade on the season. He's currently 6th among linebackers. Are we thinking that's real?
No. And it doesn't mean he's not good, but the Falcons have played 2 really beat up offensive lines in Tampa Bay and Minnesota. So you can be encouraged by the pass rush and by Divine Diablo. That's great. You should be encouraged, but I'm not going to jump in the deep end until I see more. And it's going to be a while probably till we can really see more against a quality opponent because I got the Panthers coming up next, then the Commanders, and if it's a hobble, Jaden Daniels, we'll kind of see how that impacts things. But then they play the Bills, then they play the 49ers offense and Kyle Shanahan. We'll learn more as the calendar turns to October. So I'm encouraged, but I'm not jumping in just yet.
All right. Just want to give Jihad Campbell a shout out with an 83.6 season grade so far and a 71.4 last week against KC. Super excited about him. We don't have to talk about it. Byron Young, edge rusher for the Rams, 89.6 grade and 3 sacks on the season already. He's not the name I expected to be the top guy for the Rams, right? With Jared Verse there and some of the other pieces they have on that defensive line. Is Byron Young for real?
He's for real. he's not for real top 5. There's just too many freakazoids at the position that are going to just continue to eat up those spots. But yeah, given the talent around him, he's opposite, like you said, a Jared Verse. He's not the main focal point, so he's just going to continue to do what he does, but yet still not be completely game planned for. So yeah, they're going to keep sliding to Verse. He's going to keep doing what he's doing. Be super encouraged by Byron Young, and yeah, by all means start him, but I'm not buying top 5.
Yeah. To me, he's matchup based, right? Houston and Tennessee in the first 2 weeks, rougher offensive lines. One of them maybe the worst in the NFL. So I get the idea of wanting to play him because of the other kind of pieces that should draw pressure away from him. But I would be a little bit concerned about what matchups he's facing and kind of start accordingly. Edgerrin Cooper. So week 1, we had 77.6 grade. People were talking about him being the next linebacker that was going to step up and be the guy in the NFL. This past week against Washington, 57.3, kind of came back to earth a little bit, but really did fly around the field, right? He had a sack, he had another hit, he had 2 hurries. We're talking about a guy that's being used in very creative ways. Is Edgerrin Cooper going to be real? Could he finish in the top 5? And is he a start no matter what?
Yes, and yes. I think he has to play a little bit under more control, but that's okay. That's going to come with time. He's still a young backer, but yes, as the season goes on, I think he's going to continue to rise to the top.
All right. So last guy I have for us is Keyshawn Nixon, the cornerback from Green Bay with an 85.2 season grade so far. Last week, he basically had the game of a lifetime, right? I think he had 6 batted passes or something like that in 1 week. We're talking about a 90.7 grade in that game, but a 66.9 against Detroit. Detroit obviously has basically 2 amazing receivers and some other really great pieces, making that a really hard assignment. But, with the pressure that Green Bay is putting on quarterbacks, is Nixon going to continue to get a lot of opportunities to make big plays? And, is he going to take advantage of that?
He's going to take advantage. I'm not sure if he's going to take top 5 advantage. I think he needs to clean up a little bit when it comes to yards after catch being allowed. His completion percentage given up is still, I think, can be better. 44.4, 4 receptions given up on 9 targets. So just a couple of things to clean up. I think he's going to perform and grade very well because of the pressure and him taking advantage of the pressure that front gives him, which is kudos to him, but I don't think he's quite there when it comes to the top names in the league over time, like a Sauce who's right behind him at 2nd overall, and some of the other names that we know are going to continue to rise, but bounce back for Charvarius Ward, for example. J.C. Horn still performing pretty well. We'll see how that evolves. I think there's just too many names at the top there for a top 5 type of finish, but yeah, stock up for Keyshawn Nixon.
All right, that's all I got. Ray, you wanted to talk about some things we learned maybe from week 2. What do you got?
Well, it could be things we learned. It could be an "I told you so" segment. I mean, we could say, call it whatever we want. I mean, I was mocked, I was ridiculed, I was laughed at in the streets. Okay, people put dirt on my name on social media. You all made fun of me. But Daniel Jones is quarterback 8 in the league right now with only 1 turnover-worthy play so far, 79.9 overall grading, 5th lowest pressure to sack ratio. So he's getting rid of the ball and not putting it in harm's way, which, as we discussed a couple weeks ago, that's exactly what you're supposed to do if you have a good offensive line, a good running game, and good enough weapons on the outside where you just don't have to screw it up. And he's got games upcoming against the Titans. The Rams are pretty tough. Then the Ravens and the Cardinals. It's not necessarily a murderer's row the first half of the year. So I said Daniel Jones might save your season in all 22. You probably didn't start him in week 1 or 2, but if you're someone now transitioning to maybe you have Joe Burrow and you need a savior, if you heeded my words, Daniel Jones just might save your season because I think this quality stretch of play can be kept up. I don't think he's going to be a superstar, but he could save your season during this stretch. And now for Joe Burrow, we have to have the conversation. He missed 6 games in 2020 due to a complete just tear in his knee, ACL, PCL, MCL, meniscus in 2020. Missed 7 games due to a torn right wrist ligament in 2023. Let's just say he misses 10 or 12 games now with this new turf toe injury in 2025, that's 23 to 25 games missed so far in his young career. He's played in 72 regular season games, so he's missing a quarter of all of his games as a young quarterback in his 20s. That's very concerning. These types of injuries, that just shows wear and tear on the body. And Nate Tice shared a graphic earlier this morning comparing Joe Burrow and Andrew Luck. Joe Burrow has been sacked 27 more times than Andrew Luck was at this stage of their careers. Burrow's in his 6th season. Andrew Luck played 6 seasons before he retired, and Burrow's already been sacked 27 more times. And we just went through the list of injuries that he's dealt with so far in his career. At what point do we have a conversation about Joe Burrow? We want to put him in that elite tier with these other quarterbacks when you're starting an all-22 franchise and you're doing your startup draft. But at this point, and maybe not all his fault, he just hasn't been reliable enough or available enough because of all these injuries. And yes, they drafted Amarius Mims, but the Bengals have not invested enough on the offensive line to protect their prized asset. And I'm not just going to talk about the graphic of, with whether you draft Penei Sewell or Jamar Chase, and it's like, well, you complete the pass to anybody as long as you're protected well. But then whether you have Jamar Chase on the outside, but then you're sacked and you don't complete the pass, like that whole graphic is one thing in and of itself. They drafted Shamar Stewart and he's playing really well right now, but would the interior of their offensive line look a lot better if they had a Donovan Jackson, for example, who's performing admirably so far? And we know he came into the league pretty NFL ready. A couple years back, they drafted your boy Myles Murphy. That kind of hasn't worked out too well. What if instead they had drafted a Joe Tippmann, a Matt Bergeron? These aren't superstars, but they're quality interior offensive linemen that could protect your best asset. What good is it if Shamar Stewart is a hit and even becomes as good as Trey Hendrickson on your defensive line, for example? If you have to look for a franchise quarterback for the next handful of years because you couldn't protect him well enough to stay healthy when you had an elite quarterback there for a half decade. So this whole team building thing, again, I just go on random tirades about team building, but this stuff matters. And this is why we love offensive linemen so much at all 22 and why they're so important, because you have to protect your best assets. And they haven't done a good enough job in Cincinnati of doing that for Joe Burrow. And you want to get that done before it's too late. We've seen too many great quarterbacks, again, have to leave the game earlier than they should have, or be a shell of themselves earlier than they otherwise would have because they didn't have protection earlier in their careers. Luck, we could say the same thing about Romo. By the time the Cowboys finally got a great offensive line, he was one hit away from exiting the league. The list goes on. So if you're a Burrow owner, you're in a really rough patch. But in general, the Bengals, you have to protect your best asset, and you have not done a good enough job of doing that. So, shame on you, Cincinnati. Hoping for the best for Joe Burrow. Hopefully we can see him this year if Jake Browning keeps him in playoff contention. But I'm not sure that that's going to help you too much in your fantasy seasons and in all 22, because by that time, playoffs may be wrapping up.
That was a lot, right? You just went on like a 5-minute rant, so I have to kind of try to get all my counterpoints out so the people can at least battle you.
There are no counterpoints. There are no counters to that.
Me representing the people. I'm going to start with Daniel Jones and the take you just had about Daniel Jones, okay? So if you look at the quarterbacks that were rookies last year that performed the best, who would you say those two guys were? I mean, it's not even really an opinion, right? It was Jaden Daniels and it was Bo Nix, right? Those were the two guys. Bo Nix is currently grading at a 40.9 grade through 2 games. And Jaden Daniels through 2 games is at 71.0. Jaden Daniels was like a 90 graded player last year. He's down almost like 20 points, and Bo Nix is down probably like 30 or 40 points. Guys, kind of year 2 is hard, right? Like when you have a year of like go out there and you're the new guy, teams don't really get a chance to really game plan for you and understand how to beat you. They do in year 2, right? When you look at some of the new names on new teams, right? We talked about Sam Darnold being in a new situation, doing really well. Daniel Jones is in a new situation, doing really well. But like, are you really going to tell me that Spencer Rattler is a great quarterback? Because he is right behind Daniel Jones at 8th on this list with a 79.7 grade. Okay. So like, there is a little bit of like shock factor, I think, with these new guys when they go to new teams. If Daniel Jones is sitting anywhere near the top of this list in week 15, I don't just owe you a slice of pizza, dude. I'll buy you a pie. All right. I'll buy you a pie. Because Daniel Jones beat Miami, who may be the worst team in the NFL this year, right? Like, they're looking pitiful. And then Denver, who, again, I think we're seeing year 2 of this new system, and teams look like they kind of are figuring them out a little bit, right? So I don't know if Denver is really as good as we all thought they would be going into this year. I think that's one of those teams where maybe they weren't real last year, right? And maybe we're going to see what's real for them going forward. I sound like an idiot because I went on a podcast and said, they were like, who's the player you're going to take and start and like, that you're banking on? I'm like, I think Bo Nix is going to have a year. Bo Nix is not having a year right now. So that does not feel good. So that's my Daniel Jones take. I'm going to combat you on that. I think it's way too soon to count your chickens there. The Joe Burrow thing, I do agree with you. I think it's very, very concerning to me that Joe Burrow has not stayed healthy for most of his career. Most years of his career, he has had a injury or something to worry about. And I agree with your entire take about they could have taken offensive linemen. And I think, an interesting counterpoint to that, but also kind of supports you, is like, if you look at the way the Packers built their team, they didn't put multiple first-round picks into the offensive line. Yes, they took Jordan Morgan last year at the end of the first round, but like, they haven't really done that. They have Zach Tom and Rasheed Walker playing tackle for them. Most of their interior is later round guys. They paid Aaron Banks, but that's it, right? Like, most of those guys are not on big deals or drafted early. The Bengals could have done that, right? Even if you wanted to take Shamar Stewart in the first round this year, you could have gone offensive line in the second round, right? Or you could have done that 3 years in a row. I am concerned with their team building and the way they've done it. I did like Miles Murphy. I did like some of the other guys that they've taken, but you need to prioritize your quarterback more than anything else, right? And you prioritize your quarterback by getting him blocking. So I'm in alignment there. I do think it's something to worry about for the long-term future of Joe Burrow. I still think he's a great quarterback. I think he's going to have a great career, but he needs to stay healthy.
Yeah, and just to clear the record, I did say Daniel Jones would give you a stretch to save your season. I didn't say it'd be top 5 or anything. But yeah, you buy a really expensive car, you have to take care of it. You have to put the best gas in it, the best oil, so on and so forth. And the Bengals have not done that. Not that we expect the Bengals as an organization to do the right thing and the smart thing consistently, because we've just seen over decades that they don't do that. But it's really shameful to see. And again, we hope to see Joe Burrow healthy, because one of the most exciting players in the league when he is. I just hope it's not too little too late when they finally get around to actually doing that.
What else did you have?
That's it. I just wanted to say I told you so. I mean, there's a couple of back to earth type guys too. We hit on a couple of them. Patrick Paul, last week we said, hey, let's see how he does against New England. That's a little bit of a better pass rush there. Well, 56.2, gave up 2 pressures and a sack. So, maybe tap the brakes a little bit.
Yeah, I was not banking on Patrick Paul being a star tackle. I'm sorry, Patrick Paul. I appreciate your work ethic, but just you're not there yet, buddy.
Yeah. Yet the key word. All right. Don't beat up Chris. I know, Chris, that was a little mean.
That was me.
Yeah. Just keep working.
I said yet.
But I think we hit on basically everything, and now I'm upset. So it's a perfect time to end the podcast because I'm just sad about Joe Burrow.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for tuning in. If you haven't yet, give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and X at all22_PFF, and give us a review wherever you watch or listen to your podcast. Have a great day.
Go.